This is a 2008 GMC Yukon Denali with a 6.2 in it. Grinding noise in the front end, and from the looks of the rotor, say a pad is ate up. I'll change the brake pads and a rotor on it. First thing I did was raise and support the vehicle with a jack stand. I'll take these 22mm lug nuts off of it, pull the wheel off. This is all-wheel drive. Got the wheel off this side, now take the wheel off the other side. And compare the wear on both brake pads. And it looks like for some reason the other side wore way down over this one, so I would imagine the caliper's stuck on that passenger side. So it's going to need a caliper for this side. Metal filings. Usually you see the metal filings on the rim on the side that's got the problem. Which there they are. I'll stick a screwdriver in here and try to open this caliper up so it'll let go of the rotor. It's pretty stiff. Caliper's stuck. Take a 19mm and take this caliper pin bolt out and this caliper pin bolt out, and then to get the rotor off, there's an 18mm and another 18mm. Take those out, pull the caliper and rotor both off. And that's what I'm looking at, burn up pad or two. Thing's really hot. The other side still got quite a bit of pad on it. This caliper's stuck inside holding the pads on. Has a remote possibility that the hoses went bad, acting like a check valve, but that's probably not the case. I'll take a T30 Torx bit socket and take any T30 Torx bits out of there holding the rotor on. Pull the rotor off. If you need to, you can thread bolts in here against the wheel bearing to pop it loose. Round up. That'll need replaced. It really should get both calipers. If you replace one, you can get by with one, but usually the others follow. Taking an 11mm socket and cracking the brake line loose from the caliper. And I'll crack it loose and then put a drain pan underneath here to catch the fluid running out of it. I'm going to go ahead and let a lot of the fluid out just in case there's any moisture in the fluid. I'll run a pint of brake fluid through the system. Help slow this down from happening again. Here the caliper stayed engaged on the passenger side and ground the brake pads down in us. I mean, this is the driver's side, like new. I don't think these pads have been on there that long. Driver's side rotor's relatively new too. in excellent shape. I'll go ahead and change the other caliper too, before it happens to it. Letting most of the master cylinder reservoir drain out in the pans on both sides, just to carry off any moisture that might be in the system. Make sure to keep your master cylinder reservoir at least half full at all times. And once you got the calipers put on, the bleeders open, fill the master cylinder completely full of brake fluid. You get this brake fluid all over your hands. Whatever you do, don't touch the paint job or you'll be sorry. The brake fluid dissolves paint. Any contact with the paint should be washed off immediately with water before the fluid has time to start breaking up the paint. Got 2 new calipers, new ceramic pads, and 1 new rotor from the damaged one. This rotor's in great shape. It's not that old. The best way to tell the direction of your caliper is it'll mount and the bleeder will always be on top. This bleeder has to be at top for the air to be evacuated out of it when you're bleeding it. So this one will be the driver's side, bleeder on top, and then the other one will sit on the passenger side, bleeder on top. Brake hardware. Pull the slide pins out of the hanger and lubricate them as necessary. Open the new rotor up, use a brake cleaner and a clean rag and wipe the coating off of the rotor. The rust-proof coating. It's usually some kind of wax stuff. And I'll start putting it back together and get it ready to bleed. Make sure caliper comes with 2 new copper sealing washers for the banjo fitting that goes on to the caliper. If not, those will have to be picked up. Can't reuse the old ones. I'm going to go ahead and stick the caliper up on there and put the line to it. The wider pad goes inboard. Make sure it slides freely. The skinnier pad goes outboard. Make sure the pins are loose and able to slide. And stick the caliper and 1 new washer on the outer bolt and a new washer on the inside of the bolt when it passes through the connector there. Make sure your banjo fitting is clean on both sides and put a sealing washer on both sides and put the bolt through it. Mount it on the caliper, crack the bleeder loose. Tighten your banjo fitting bolt to 30 foot-pounds, and then close this bleeder when fluid starts coming out of it. If you removed your rotor, put your rotor back on, put your torque headed bevel headed bolt back in, and put your caliper hanger back on. Clean the seats out for the brake pads and torque the caliper hanger bolts to 175 foot-pounds. Install new noise suppressors. Install the caliper and tighten the caliper bolts to 75 foot-pounds. And and the brake hose banjo fitting bolt is 30 foot-pounds. And again, the larger, wider pad goes to the inside. Make sure it slides freely in it. Sometimes, even if you've cleaned out underneath of these noise suppressors, the seat, the pads won't fit because they're out of spec or the hanger's warped or has a problem, or if they do fit, they're hard to slide in and out. And take them in there, take a grinder and clean the paint off of it. Try one side, and then if that don't work, try both sides and just remove some of the paint to help it slide in there back and forth easy. And once fluid starts running out of this bleeder, close it off and then bleed the brakes. Be sure to keep the caps all tight on your brake fluid. It attracts water bad, which is what tears the calipers up, and the water in that high temperature doesn't work well in it as far as giving you good brakes. There. I'm going to pump the brake pedal halfway down until these pads come out and touch the rotor, and then hold the pedal down and bleed each side twice by popping this bleeder loose and letting the brake pedal drop, and then closing the bleeder off to remove any trapped air still in the caliper. Pump the brake pedal slowly until you have a full pedal, and then hold the pedal down. Break this bleeder loose from the passenger side first, then slowly release the brake pedal and wait for 10 seconds. Then pump the pedal slowly a couple more times and hold the brake pedal and release this bleeder again. Then do the same for the driver's side. I'll look everything over. Make sure the brake hoses aren't twisted in a knot, that they're smooth and flowing into the caliper, not upside down. And all the bolts are tight and the bleeder's tight. And the brakes are bled. Stick your wheel on there and tighten these lug nuts down to 140 foot-pounds. Then let the vehicle off the jack stands and make sure you got a brake pedal before you put it in gear. It's an opportune time to check the tie rod ends for any play and ball joints. If your brake pedal doesn't feel right, you can always bleed it again. Make sure you have a good feeling pedal before you're done. And make sure your master cylinder is topped off to the full mark.